Hello and welcome to Bud's RPG Review, where I give my thoughts on role-playing games, card games and board games. Today's review is Castaway by the Afterthought Committee. Okay, first a bit of history. Released in 2021, Castaway was the product of a successful Kickstarter that had just 164 backers. It's available as an 18-page PDF from DriveThruRPG and Itch, and in print from floatingchair.club. To the cover. Here we have quite a nice piece of non-copywritten art that extends around the back, and the lettering is embossed in gold. The cardboard of the cover has that lovely velvety texture that feels good quality. To the inside. When we get past the credits, we get to the introduction where the author explains that Castaway is a role-playing game about difficult choices and the toll it takes on us. To play, you need a pencil, paper and a set of dice, though you won't need the D20. The players are cast as survivors, and the person who runs the game is called the GM or the Navigator. The job of the Navigator is to bring light to the natural world, and the players essentially only have each other to rely upon in order to survive. It's a game about human endurance, cooperation, survival, and even maybe betrayal, and it's portrayed as potentially traumatic. Each player has secrets that play into the game. It also makes the note that this book can be used as kindling should you need it to actually survive. We then move on to the Survivor's Guide. Each player creates a survivor that has 2 stats, physical and mental fortitude, and 2 skills. They also have a hidden story element that only the GM knows. All players start with a dice pool of D12, D10, D8, D6 and D4, and the largest die in their pool is their current die or CD. When a roll is required, the player rolls their current die plus bonuses. All rolls are against a threshold set by the GM, and the player needs to roll over this number. Meeting the number equals success with a minor cost. Fortitude is the core statistic, and each stat is rolled with D4 plus 2, with relevant challenges requiring the roll plus the stat. Skills give a +2 to relevant rolls and are open to justifiable interpretation. Essentially, if you can justify the use of a skill, it adds to the roll. Injuries and the like are known as conditions, and are given by the GM to the player in response to consequences of failure or poor choices. Multiple conditions can be gained at once and even stack. When a condition is gained, the CD is removed from the dice pool, making them less effective. Conditions can be removed and healed by using resources and overcoming challenges, and when done, adds a die back to the dice pool of the next size currently available. In addition to this, survivors can push themselves to overcome a challenge in the result of a failure. When this happens, they add +4 to their roll, but they gain a condition automatically. If someone lends assistance to pass a roll, they can add their CD to the roll, but a failure means both of them gain a condition. There's also a really interesting mechanic called Haunt Dice. When a survivor dies, it lingers in the mind of their companions. The player of the dead survivor gains 3d6 in Haunt Dice. These can be used to add or subtract from the result of another survivor's roll before the outcome is worked out. Once all of the dice are spent, the remnants of the deceased fades from memory. It talks about how supplies and inventory are essential to rescue. Anything they find or scavenge is considered a supply. A survivor can only carry 4 small supplies, with 4 more if they have a backpack. Some supplies are considered bulky and use 2 slots or 2 hands to carry. Tiny supplies don't take up space, though some may be fragile, and on a D6 roll of a 5 or 6 they are wiped out after they've been used, other than food and water, which the roll is not required for, but definitely depleted. Essentially, other than surviving, rescue is the aim of the game and can take many forms. Survivors also have secrets that could be addictions, ulterior motives, tensions, or many other things that make the game interesting and add to the narrative. After this is threats. This is when a character has to fight, whether physically or figuratively, to defend themselves. Each creature you could physically fight has a condition limit. If they are beaten by a roll in a contest, they gain a condition, and when it has gained its limit, it's no longer a threat. A contested roll is your CD versus their CD. The example given is dodging a charging bear. The highest roll wins. A tie favours the defender. For example, beating a bear may not be as suicidal as combat, but evading it enough so that it gains 2 confused conditions and then gives up wandering off could be an option. It gives us 3 creatures, the venomous snake, the deer and the bear. Time, weather and the environment are also critical factors when considering the chance of survival, and environmental conditions could be gained like hungry, dehydrated and even things like poisoned if the wrong kind of plant is eaten, as well as the possibility of drowning and falling and the like. In addition to this, infection and disease are vectors from things like bites and insects and unknown viruses. These things sometimes impose their own conditions due to symptoms. After this we have the character sheet, with a quick rollable history mechanic, as well as a guideline on how to play the game. Following this we have the Navigator's Guide. Here it goes into how to run Castaway. It gives a guide to difficulty thresholds for challenges here, as well as how to assign conditions and how to make death something important. It goes into haunting in practice, as well as how to generate supplies and to determine a rescue. We also have information on how to craft a dramatic secret, giving a list of possibilities, though for some reason the last one is partially redacted, so one can only imagine what that was. There's some good notes on how to prepare for the game, including the kinds of questions that should be asked, and stresses the recommendation to start broad and then begin to focus more narrowly on details, as they're important. It then gives us an example setup of skiers lost in the Alps and decides on the time period, environment, threats, short and long term, building scenes and how to incorporate conditions as well as the lethality, saying that a party of 4 players playing for 4 hours need to gain a condition every 12 minutes in order to be killed. Also included is a little scenario called Wet Season, which involves survivors of a plane crash in a rainforest, which is actually really well formed and looks to be enjoyable, also going some way to explain how the game works practically. Lastly, we have a thank you with bonus kittens, as well as some optional mechanics. As zines go, Castaway has some of the best production values I've seen. It is really nicely put together, with good art and nice paper, as well as a clear readable font, which you may be surprised to discover is not as common as you would think. It has the potential to be a really good convention game, however, I do feel that the consent discussion is perhaps laboured over a bit too much throughout. While it is something I wholeheartedly agree with, it did feel like the point was hammered home just a few too many times, as to my mind everything that needed to be said was done to a good standard on the first page, and it did feel like it was at times just taking up unnecessary space that could have been used to go into the game itself a bit more. That said, what was written was done in a way that felt appropriate. The haunting mechanic was something I've never seen in a game before, and I felt it was a really clever method of allowing those players who perhaps die at the hands of others, whether accidentally or by more nefarious methods, to at least have a way of affecting play to punish their transgressors, as well as allowing those players who want to help their fellow survivors to assist them in some small way. Additionally, the dice pool, current dice mechanic slowly wearing away your ability to accomplish things, felt very right for what the game is trying to do. Castaway is a good little system that I feel accomplishes what it sets out to do, and I think you won't be disappointed if you pick it up, as it's easy to learn but has a good scope to come up with something interesting. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. If you enjoyed this review, please make sure to hit the thumbs up, subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. Also, if you're interested in buying this product, put some links below. Lastly, if you like what I produce here, then maybe think about supporting me on Patreon or even becoming a member of my YouTube channel. Bud out.